Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we are doing something a little different. We are going to be ranking a number of cakes on a tier list. Why are we doing this? Mostly because I like expressing my opinions and I like desserts. That's good enough for me. I've also kind of wanted to just do this forever. It's silly, but I'm going to have a lot of fun with it, I think. Um, Before I get into the specific cakes, though, I do feel like I need to go over a few ground rules. First off, one thing I just kind of want to address because it kind of gnaws at the back of my mind. Um, the cakes that I will be talking about tonight, if you are picturing them while I'm discussing them, picture kind of almost what you might call the plutonic ideal of the cake, because certain cakes, if they're not like well made, if they're made by someone who doesn't have a lot of experience doing it, will be bad and will not be good representatives of the cake. So I almost feel like this kind of goes without saying, but just assume that all the cakes we're talking about here are made by people who are experienced at making them, or even possibly professionals. Not the best in the world necessarily, because I've never tried best in the world of some of these. So just keep that in mind. These are, very good examples of what we're talking about. Second of all, you may notice there's not a huge list of cakes tonight. That's for a couple reasons. One, this is my first kind of tier list stream I've ever done. I'm keeping it relatively simple as a test. I've already learned that really I need some background music, something light and non-obtrusive. Usually I have the game I'm playing's music to rely on, but that's for later. And second of all, I while I was tempted to judge them purely on the kind of concept, I decided against putting any cakes on this list that I have not tried or have tried so infrequently or so long ago that I don't remember them. So these are all cakes that I can at least summon the memory of what they're like to my mind, or I have at least tried them. I have several of these I haven't tried many times, but I at least am familiar with them. And third, I'm just going to go over the sort of the criteria. It's pretty loose for this. Mostly, what I'm judging the cakes on is how much of the experience of eating them do I enjoy. Are there kind of asterisks on certain cakes, like the ones that have almost no little things that might bother me or conceivably could have elements added into them that I wouldn't like? Those are the ones that are going to be near the top of the list. That may not make a whole lot of sense now, but I will explain it as I go through the list. There are certain cakes in here that often have certain elements in them that I would not include. A lot of people do, and I think they drag the cakes down a little bit in the ranking. But what I mean by that will become more clear as we go through this. So, let's just get started. And we are going to go sort of how the thing alphabetically organized my uploads. We're going to start with the angel food cake. Now, another thing that's going to come up as we go across this, a lot of cakes often have some sort of lovely topping or kind of an edible garnish, you might almost say. With angel food cake, the thing that always just comes to mind with me is a lovely kind of strawberry sauce. And I do love a good fruit sauce, as long as it's not overwhelmingly sugary. And while I think it would be fair to judge an angel food cake, for instance, just purely on the cake itself, I don't think almost anyone serves an angel food cake without some sort of topping. So we're going to have to walk a bit of a tightrope here while we are judging the angel food cake sort of as a whole, including the toppings. We can't really consider the toppings the main part of the cake. So that in mind, I do like angel food cake. It's kind of light. It's nice and fluffy. It's very pleasant to look at too, though aesthetics aren't going to play a huge part in this, but I think I'm going to put angel food cake at a C. It's just, it's just, it's just not terribly impressive. The toppings, the sauce can add a lot to it, but that doesn't really bring up the cake itself. The toppings really do carry it, and that's almost kind of a point against it. I really do like it, but the cake itself, not bad. I would not avoid it. I would not choose to go without a dessert if it was offered at like a buffet table or something. I would certainly take a slice, but I'm not going to be requesting it necessarily from like a menu or anything. Next up is the carrot cake. Now this is one of the ones where I'm going to have to mention my particular tastes. I kind of I don't think it's terrible, angel food cake. Now here's the thing. I actually do very much like carrot cake. I like often the kind of texture of the cake itself, and unlike sort of toppings like this, you cannot call a carrot cake without the cream cheese icing. So I think, opposed to the toppings with angel food cake, we are a little more inclined to judge carrot cake with the icing on top of it. And honestly, I'm going to probably put carrot cake at a B. Now, I am putting carrot cake at a B with the assumption that there is no actual carrot slices or shavings in it. This is going to be a through line through a lot of cakes and discussions with me about food. With a few very specific exceptions, I don't like tiny pieces of things in other things. I don't like nuts in cakes, not even peanuts, which I do like. I don't mind a peanut crumble kind of topping at times, but I don't like nuts in cakes, especially not like walnuts or things like that, things you might find in carrot cakes. I don't actually mind raisins very much, but I don't think raisins go well in carrot cake. It really doesn't have much to do with the carrot cake. So, and without all those things, and just based on the consistency of the cake and its honestly relatively simple topping, honestly, it's just, nice cream cheese. I think B is as high as carrot's going to go. Honestly, personally, this is just my take, and this might just reveal my horrible biases. The carrot flavor isn't really what I'm here for. The carrot cake is a cream cheese delivery vehicle. That being said, I'm now going to probably make your opinions of all me drown terribly. Cheesecake, I think, is pretty different. Now, I should need to specify something very important with the cheesecake here. Cheesecake, for me, cannot include, or at least should not include, graham cracker crumb, like crust. To me, graham cracker crumb is like just sand and sugar. The graham part of it, especially if you don't get a very good quality graham cracker, it's an anchor around the cheesecake's neck. So if you ever have a cheesecake with me, it's got to be that chocolate wafer crumble or even Oreo cookie crumble if you are feeling really generous. And wonderful thing about cheesecake too is that unlike angel food cake, there's a little bit of the toppings, and unlike a carrot cake, which not a lot of variation in carrot cake flavor, cheesecake is very adaptable. It can be customized to suit a lot of different tastes. You can have cheesecake with swirls of like fruit. I've done a blueberry marble cheesecake. You can have chocolate cheesecake. You can have like lemon cheesecake. Cheesecake has so many varieties. Chocolate cheesecake can be kind of heavy. I think that might be possibly a quality kind of thing. I've had some very light chocolate cheesecakes that are very nice. Though there is a heavy kind of chocolate thing we're going to get to later in the list. But just because of how much I enjoy the variety, the whole package coming together, like the chocolate crumble crust, and I just also like just the flavor of cheesecake. I like cream cheese. Cheesecake is our first S rank. It's just whenever the chance is given to me, I will grab something cheesecake, even if it's like a little cup cheesecake or something like a dainty or something off a dessert tray. Next up, coffee cake. Coffee cake was a bit of a contentious addition for me into this list because we also have rum cake on here. Coffee cake is good to me, but it also has kind of a ceiling to it. Coffee cake is nice and simple, but that also kind of limits it because unless you go super crazy with it and add things into it, it's only so good a coffee cake can get. You could probably like add some sort of nice sauce or something. Like I remember once I think I had a lovely, not necessarily on a coffee cake, but there was a nice like mocha spread or something that you could maybe add, but that's just adding things onto the coffee cake. I like coffee cakes. They're a nice kind of light thing. It's not something I would request for like if my family will ask me what I wanted for my birthday cake or something. There are a lot of desserts I would choose over coffee cake, despite the fact that I do like it. So it's probably going to go in C tier along with angel food cake. It's fine. It's not bad. It's just not the top of the cake, so to speak. On the other end of the spectrum, genie cake. Genie cake is here specifically so I can put something in D tier. I'm just going to lead with that. I do not like genie cake. I'm going to bring this up a little later, I think, in the store mix cake, but I find the icing and chocolate shavings that you often find on genie cakes to be very unappealing. It's just so lackluster. And then the horrible dry wafers inside the genie cake, it disrupts the texture of the cake. There's just so many little things about genie cakes. You can buy a genie cake if you wish. Twitch obbles. Just don't bring it anywhere near me, please. There's so many little things that combine together. I don't like genie cakes. I think I actively avoid it. If it is offered to me and it's the only dessert, I will pass. I just don't enjoy eating it. I'm sorry, I just don't like it. Yes, the recipe is from the 30s, in the dark times. It is very vintage. Though I'm sure in certain ways there are certain cakes in here that probably have an even greater heritage. But not one of them is the ice cream cake. Now, when I say ice cream cake, I do want to be specific. I do mean an entire cake that there's no like cake batter, there's no cream cheese or anything. It's just ice cream. There can be a nice kind of layer of a chocolate kind of cookie crumble or something in the midway. I do like that in a carrot cake, or pardon me, an ice cream cake. And also, much like cheesecakes, ice cream is very adaptable, very changeable. I mean, that's probably what I was brought up on DQ cakes. It is, potentially, there's a lot of variety in ice cream cakes. You could have any flavor of ice cream cakes. Something that actually I do want to bring up, and this is a recommendation to anyone, if you ever get the chance, this is similar to ice cream cakes, but it's not, something my mom would make is a like sorbet layer cake. It doesn't really have a crust, it's just in a bowl, but you take like maybe 4 to 5 different colored, different flavored sorbets, and where's it? Am I thinking of sorbet maybe? And you layer them in the bowl, so it creates sort of like a multicolored layer cake. No, hold on, pardon me, not sorbet, sherbet. I'm thinking of sherbet. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to serve on a hot summer's day, and the variety of flavors is delightful. I, I, that is a good point, but the principle still lasts. The ice cream cake as a ideal. So, ice cream cake is probably going to go. Ice cream cake's going to go up in B next to. Actually, you know what? No, ice cream cake's going to go in A, mostly because I also really like ice cream. But there's a lot of variety you can achieve with it. Its basic components are already kind of delicious, so I think ice cream cake is pretty good and very much deserves its spot in A. The next one has been a little difficult for me. This is the mousse cake. Now, often I think mousses potentially are served without any sort of like crust or anything, so they wouldn't even count as cake, they'd just be a dessert. But specifically I wanted to talk about mousse cake where it has like a little crust. Here's the thing, I couldn't think of other cakes that I have had. I can't think of enough that I have had a great amount of experience with that I feel honestly that I can, comment on. These are ones that I have opinions about, because I'm at least familiar with them and I feel like I'm coming from a place where I know what I'm talking about. Not necessarily from the perspective of someone who actually bakes a lot. I will always bow to people who have much more first-hand experience, but I'm talking about my personal taste. This is my tier list. But back to the mousse cake. I've had some very good mousse cakes in my life, or just mousses, I suppose. And again, I'm talking about probably the best of the ones I've seen. They are wonderful and delightful, and sometimes they get like layered in with like whipped cream or something. And while I do think mousse cakes are delightful, and I will always accept one if I can, they are also kind of limited. You can add certain things more to it. Like you could add like a layer of like strawberry or something. But I don't know. I just feel like there's not necessarily a whole lot you can do with mousse. So it's going to go up, I think, next to carrot cake, though it's really somewhere in between, I think. Then we get a similar thing to the coffee cake, but it is distinct enough flavor that I wanted to give it its own shot. I've had some quite good rum cakes in my life. I think one possibly from like, what is it? The Bermuda Triangle, actually. Somewhere in there. I can't remember specifically where we got it, but I think much like the coffee cake, they are a nice kind of treat, a little dessert. I probably would not pick it over ice cream cake or necessarily carrot cake. That's a fair point. Fruit cake. I'm trying to think. Are we talking like Christmas fruit cake? Because if we are, I'm going to have opinions about that. Yes, I forgot to say welcome to the stream, Tabletop Rolls. Now, here's where I might be butting up against possibly my cultural blindness, Squishy Werewolf, because when I picture fruitcake, I picture the kind of dark brown, almost like shaped like a loaf of bread with the kind of like jellied fruit in it. And if we're talking about that, that would probably actually be, for me, down in D tier. I do not care for it. I just don't care for it. It might be I've just never had good fruitcake in my life, but oof, don't care for it. But also I'm going to put rum cake in the C tier with angel food cake. It's a perfectly acceptable cake. I like it. Would not pick it above certainly any of the ones above it. And honestly, it's also kind of skirting the line of actually being cake, because much like coffee cake, it doesn't really have a crust, and I suppose angel food cake doesn't as well. They're almost more desserts, but they have cake in the name, so I wanted to put them on the list. Next, we're going to talk about shortcake, which, for the purpose of this, is kind of like almost like a layer cake, where it's shortbread and then like whipped cream or possibly some sort of jam and then another bit of shortbread, etc., etc. I'll be honest with you, I'm not wild about shortcakes. Any cake that incorporates something that's very dry and crumbly, and doesn't have like it's not enclosed entirely by something softer and sweeter. Not a big fan. It's not going to go in the same thing as genie cake, because for some reason something about genie cakes, the combination of all sorts of things just makes it worse. But shortcake, I think the small dry bits are usually in small enough portions. You never see a shortcake the size of another kind of cake. So it's going to go in that very populated C tier with the others. Now we come to a bit of a sore spot with me, and this is, I think, going to reflect a bit of my age. We're going to talk now about the store mix cake. And by that, I mean the kind of cake you go to the store, you buy the box, and it's just like kind of a powder in a box that you pour into a bowl and add some eggs and milk or something. I just, at this point in my life, I'm so unimpressed with store make cakes. They're just, you end up applying icing and stuff to them, and you might be able to do something inventive with them, but honestly, the store make cakes is like the packing peanuts of cakes. It's not bad necessarily, not to the same extent to me that genie cakes are, and I suppose I wouldn't necessarily avoid it, but goodness gracious, I'm so uninterested in it. It's just, I don't mean to sound harsh, but it's boring to me. It's so boring. There's nothing exciting about it. You can maybe put like chocolate chips in it that might make it like a D plus or something, but I'm putting it in D. It's so boring. And the kind of icing you put on it is often also very boring. It's usually just like powdered sugar or what have you, or something. It might elevate it into C tier if you used like buttercream, but then if you went overboard too much, too much buttercream is almost as bad as just normal kind of sugar icing. I see that in a lot of cupcakes these days. A lot of cupcakes like, oh, we'll just make this cupcake really good by piling so much icing on top of it. But then you just get sugar overwhelmed, which, bleh, do not care for that. Next we come to tiramisu, which also is kind of standing in here for a variety of layer cakes that aren't super specific. I very much like tiramisu. I haven't seen a lot of varieties in my life. I like to think there might be a lot of varieties because it's more of tiramisu is almost kind of representing here a kind of principle of a cake. Not the same way shortbread cake is, but tiramisu I think believes specifically is like a layer of ladyfingers or some sort of like biscuit or cookie soaked in possibly rum or something, and then you put a layer of whipped cream or something, and then you put another layer of ladyfingers. It elevates it above shortbread cake and the like because the biscuits or what have you at least has been softened with something that infuses a wonderful flavor into it. So I really do kind of like it. It's a nice, not exactly light necessarily because there's potentially a lot of cream in there, but I like it. It's a good dessert, and there is potential variety in it. You can like add chocolate. You can do stuff to the very top layer. I think it's a good cake. I think it doesn't quite reach the same level of customization that ice cream cakes do, but it's definitely worth a B. Um, Now, this last one, the truffle cake, my own personal bias is going to come into here. A truffle cake, very specifically, is a cake that has the main part of the cake, the filling, is mostly just butter and chocolate. Now, there are ways to do this badly, where possibly you put too much butter, or you do what I did, unfortunately, and use very dark chocolate chips, which unfortunately kind of brings the sweetness down too much, and it almost becomes a little dull. Like truffle cakes, you never want to eat more as much as you would a normal cake. You want much thinner slices because it's so rich, and if you eat too much of it, you will feel pretty overwhelmed. But it is a wonderful treat. I love truffle cakes. I've tried experimenting the last few times I've made it with like an additional sort of topping, but you got to worry about it seeping down and getting the whole thing kind of wet and messy. I've discovered that might just be my poor skills at making the toppings. I only tried the one time, but I think truffle cakes are great. They are a wonderful treat. They're just such high quality usually. Now, usually, sort of based on this and the fact that they're not super customizable, the principle of a truffle cake is pretty specific. It's meant to be buttery and chocolatey and oftentimes kind of thick. But because I just like it so much, it elevates it from the B tier up into the A tier. Yeah, I really like truffle cake. Again, assuming, as we did with all of these, that they are well made. Now, I do want to open this up a little bit to chat at the moment. Please feel free to shout, or, well, not shout, but type as many kind of desserts as you can think of in there, and I will give you my opinion on them. Some of them may be very much off the cuff, because I may not have experience with them, but I will do my best to give you an honest grading, if you feel like it. I'm going to take a moment and have a sip of my beverage here. Trying to think if there's some cakes I also haven't thought of to put in here. I did contemplate putting cupcakes in here just because they have cake in the name, but I've never had a Victoria sponge. If you can, perhaps describe it in quick terms in the chat, because I'm interested. Actually, hold on. Sponge cake. Huh. I never thought of sponge cake. Hold on. Is sponge cake really that different from angel food cake? I can't recall. I may not have had a sponge cake in my life. That's interesting. Trying to think now. One of the reasons I decided, I think, ultimately against putting cupcakes in here is because, in a way, a lot of cupcakes end up just being like small store-bought cake mix cakes. They don't even have like a nice crust, maybe. Like store-based cake mix don't have crust either, now that I think about it. That does sound nice. I do like a lot of cakes if they can include some sort of jam. I think if back in the day, my family would often make they would make a store mix cake, but then they would slice it horizontally through the middle and then put in a lovely layer of strawberry jam and then put on the icing. I always liked that. And also, I don't know if anyone else's family ever did this, but sometimes I don't actually know at what point in the process they did it. They would like wrap like a quarter or a dime or something in wax paper and put it in the cake as like a treat. And they always told you too, because you don't want to bite into a piece of cake and get like a coin stuck in your teeth or something. Yeah, it was an odd tradition to be sure, but you know, a little extra pocket change for the kids. I'm trying to think of any other desserts. Anything I didn't. This was a sort of a test form doing a tier stream. I have some other tier streams in mind, but they are going to be a bit more involved, and I have to learn how to use tier maker a little bit. This was the first time I've ever used it. Yeah, the Victoria Sponge does sound nice, Squishy. Just based off the description alone, I think it would probably go... Probably in C. The jam might elevate it into like B or a C plus, but it does sound a little similar to an angel food cake in a way. I would have to try it to really make a determination, I think. Trying to think of any other desserts that count as cakes. The reason, by the way I distinguish between cakes and pies, very specifically, a pie has to have a pastry crust. You can fill it with whatever you want. It can be a chocolate pie, it can be a fruit pie, it could be a lemon meringue pie, but it has to have the pastry crust. That makes it a pie. To me, anyway. I am not a expert in the culinary arts or even a professional chef, so I'm sure there are people out there who knew better than me. But yeah, I think that is it for the cake tier list. I was perhaps a little too organized in my thoughts, and I just was too efficient. Thank you all for stopping in at this little experiment, letting me ramble on about my like of cakes. You know, I think I've heard of pineapple pineapple upside down cakes, and I do like pineapple. I've even enjoyed pineapple on pizza, though not with ham. I think I discovered years ago that my initial reaction to the concept of a Hawaiian pizza was just the ham. I've never liked ham, even when I ate meat. I found it kind of gross. But I've enjoyed like jalapeno and pineapple pizzas. The sweet and the spicy. Delicious. Yeah, I don't know enough about what pineapple upside down cake tastes like to give it a grade. It's just, I don't know, just pineapple. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining me. If I do another one of these, I'm probably going to try and include more variety of things. It was a pretty short list, honestly, but these are the ones that I feel the most strongly about, and I think it worked well for this test. I hope everyone has a good remainder of their Tuesday night. I hope you're all staying cool and not humid, because it's pretty rough out there. But until next time, everyone, more in reference to the games we usually play here, but may all your hits be crits, and all your rolls be golden. Have a good night, everyone.